So in the shop today, I have my 2007 F150. It has a 6-inch rough country lift kit installed on it with 37-inch tires. And something that I've been putting off since I've had the lift kit installed. It's been 5 or 6 years now that it's been installed on the truck, and I've been driving it as is. And it's been fine for the most part. But if you look at the rear wheel well, you can see that the axle is favored towards the rear. So you have a big gap here on the back, and I'll get you guys in here closer to see it. And then on the rear, there's a small gap there. So I have drop shackles installed in the rear, and I had always thought since installing it that the issue that I was having with the wheel well spacing was just the geometry of having those installed, where I was just keeping the front of the leaf spring at the factory mounting position and then basically dropping the back and lifting the spring, that I was changing the radius of the bed around the axle. But it's come to my attention, a buddy of mine pointed out that I likely have the rear blocks installed backwards, which, hey, we all make mistakes. I'm not, I do them too. I'm not immune to it. So I got a gauge finder and I put it on there just to check my pinion angle versus my transmission angle. And I'm thinking that's correct. So something that I need to do is get those blocks in the rear flipped around, and we'll see if this fixes the problem. I went and I looked around YouTube previous trying to do research, or even going on online and trying to search it, and there's really not anything that really shows this situation and other people having the same problem. So I want to make this video to hopefully it will help somebody else if they're in the same situation that I am. Because whenever you look at it, it sounds like a silly thing to do, but whenever you're looking at the block in front of you, you see the angle and you're like, no, it goes in this way, and you second guess yourself 10,000 times, which is what I did. And ultimately, I got it wrong. So I'm sure that somebody else must have ran into this, or is going to run into the same problem. It doesn't need to be a 2004, 2008 F-150 such as this. It could be any leaf spring vehicle that has a lift block in the rear, that has a pinion angle shim that accommodates for the lift. So hopefully, this will find somebody that's needing it, and they can learn from my mistakes. So I'm going to get you guys a closer look at what's going on with the wheel well gap, and then we'll get this truck lifted up and start working on getting those blocks flipped around and see if that fixes the problem. So getting a better look here, you can see there's a pretty decent wheel well gap, and this liner is at an angle too. So it's really kind of like from here to there. So it's pretty significant, pretty good amount of space. And then you move to the rear, and then you can see not so much right here. Which, surprisingly enough, if this is, an issue with the pinion angle and the blocks are backwards, and, flipping them is going to correct the issue. I didn't have any driveline vibration issues with the blocks being the way that they are, which, is nice. It rides pretty good, actually, pretty smooth. Problem that I would run into is just driving day to day. Really didn't affect me at all, but where I would run into problems, I do run into problems the way that it is now, is if I have like a really heavy load that I'm towing or something. Like at one point I had towed a buddy's car on a car hauler, and it towed it fine. But whenever I would go and hit the brakes saying coming up to a stoplight, and the weight of the trailer pushed down on the trailer hitch, it would pull the bed down, and then this would rub and make contact with the tire, and obviously we don't want the tire to eat the bed. So that's been, a pretty inconvenient thing to happen, especially having a truck, So hopefully by getting these flipped, we'll be able to fix that problem. Let me get under here and kind of show you what we're looking at. So that's the block, which probably pretty hard to see with the angle that I'm on right now. Whenever I get the wheels off, it'll probably be a little bit easier. But right now it's got an angle that's tilting it down. whereas we would want to flip it so that the higher end here would bring the pinion angle up and therefore hopefully recenter where this axle is in the wheel well, fixing the problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this jacked up. That might be a better angle. You can see it where it's kind of going down a little bit. So we'll get that flipped the other way around. So I'm gonna get this truck jacked up and pop the wheels off, and I'll get you guys back in here to look and see what we're gonna be doing. Now that I have the wheel off, it's a lot easier to see kind of what I'm talking about. So this is looking pretty much straight on at the angle of that block. And you can see that it has that tilt this way. So by putting the angled side of the block this way, that will hopefully kick that down, therefore kind of pushing that axle forward. So just need to pop off the U-bolts that are supporting for the anti-wrap, and then take off the two for the axle. And then we'll get that flipped around on either side. And then hopefully we'll be back in business. Right on. So that seems to have done the trick. You can see the gap in the front. Now the gap in the rear. So it's pretty well centered up there now. So that was the problem. Oh yeah, man. So that seems to have done the trick. Super stoked about it that corrected the issue. You know, I thought that was just gonna be a problem that was gonna stay. You know, I thought I was gonna have to actually lift the truck up higher in the front and put a factory shackle in the rear to fix the problem. But I'm really glad that that was able to do it. You know, it just goes to show we all make mistakes. I made one. You know, luckily I was able to drive the truck without really any issue for the past 5 or 6 years. But hopefully this video finds someone who needs the help or is confused or running the same problem and they don't know what the heck is going on. Well, it's that. So put the angled part of your blocks towards the rear, the angled side, and then the one that's more straight up and down, that goes towards the front. So that's gonna do it for this video. You know, once again, super stoked about that. And yeah, hope it helps one of you guys. Thanks guys for watching.